I grew up in Saginaw, Michigan. It was difficult. It was tough. I never knew who my father was. So that was a hard adjustment because, I got all the names. I never knew what bastard meant until I got older. My grandmother never had a house that wasn't big enough for all of us, my mother, my brother, and me, because she knew we'd end up there. Functioning alcoholics and violence, a lot of domestic violence. So it's amazing how these things follow you. My grandfather beat my grandmother. My mother's men beat her. When I got older, my men beat me. And it was the norm rather than the exception. I remembered when I was 7, and there was a carnival across the street from my grandmother's house. And it was free. So they had the merry-go-rounds, and they had the Ferris wheels and all those things. And we were excited. So I remembered asking my grandmother if I could go. And she said, yeah, go. So I went to the carnival, and this preacher guy says, well, you kids can play on the merry-go-round and all that kind of stuff, but first you have to listen to what I have to say. Well, we were 7. We didn't really want to hear it, but we knew we had to. But what was so interesting was that he started to talk about this man named Jesus. I had never heard anyone talked about the way he talked about that man. And when he got done, I didn't want to stay at the carnival. I remember going to my grandmother's house. I went back home and sat on her old 3-piece sectional, the kind where the good pieces were covered in plastic. I remembered sitting there, and I was like, Jesus, 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 come into my life. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. It was amazing. I was 7, and I felt something happen. And I thought, nothing bad will ever happen to me. No one will ever hurt me because I've got Jesus. The very next week, I was molested. And I was in my own bed, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and a man is sitting on the end of my bed, one hand over my mouth, his other hand in my pajamas. And what I remembered was that he had very large hands, and you'd better not tell. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get a whipping. I remembered laying there, and somewhere in his excitement, he must have forgotten where his hand was, because now it wasn't over my mouth. It was over my nose and my mouth, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember lying there in all that pain and thinking, where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? Where's Mama? Where's anybody? And the worst part about it is there was a room full of people 15 feet away or less. And it gets worse because this was what I had to look forward to every Friday night for as long as he was a friend of the family. There's something about being molested at such an early age that, I don't know, it's like this aura that's always with you. Any chance for healthy self-esteem is destroyed before it's ever been able to develop. So I grew up promiscuous, so to speak. And it wasn't that I was trying to be. I remembered being molested by friends of the family, family members, deacons in the church. Yeah, we got problems in our churches. So you really don't know how to deal with what's going on with you because you cannot identify it. You just know it's wrong. You don't know why it's wrong. You know, you feel bad about yourself. You feel bad about everybody around you. And I think what makes it even more difficult is that the people who are supposed to love you and nurture you, take care of you, protect you, they didn't. And so you wonder why no one ever asks you, what's the matter? Or you don't smile like you used to. You don't laugh like you used to. Nobody asks. And in my house, everybody was too busy thinking about themselves. So I grew up pretty promiscuous. I mean, by 14, I was having full-blown sex, and it wasn't that I was trying to be a tramp. I wasn't. But I was trying to give my boyfriend the best that I had because I wanted him to know that I loved him, because that's what they say to our girls, right? If you love me, you'll give me this. If you love me, you'll do that. And I did. But what I learned is that it's not love that you're looking for, it's validation. Everybody needs to be validated. And that's what I was looking for too. You know, I spent most of my life waiting for other people to make me good enough. They won't. They won't. So you have to find that thing in you that sets you apart from everybody else. And that's what you build on. One day, I meet him. Comes up in his fancy car and girls and money and tells me I'm beautiful and buys me designer clothes and fancy shoes and takes me to fancy restaurants. All of a sudden, someone's paying good attention to me. And took money and liquor to my mother and grandmother. They loved him. But shortly after the honeymoon was over, found myself getting up, getting off the floor and getting up off the floor for saying things like, I thought. Bitch, you don't think, I think for you. What? You love me, right? The beatings, the lack of support from family. And what's interesting is that I would show up at my mother's house all beaten up and be like, well, what do you keep doing to this man to make him do this to you? And if you leave him, what about us? He's good to us. Oh my goodness. That was my support system. And while they were on one side of town talking about how much they love him, he was on another side of town saying things like, go ahead and leave and you'll come to your mama's funeral, or go ahead and leave and I'll have those two bastards of yours turned out in a week. That's why I hate it when people ask that stupid question about, why didn't you just leave? You could have just left. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because when people like that say things to you like, they're going to hurt your mother, or I'll have your kids turned out, or I'm going to do something to hurt someone in your family. When you know that this threat has been made by someone who could easily do it with no remorse at all, that's the kind of thing that will make you drive across the state, meet dates, turn tricks, get all the money, do it with no ID, and come back and bring every cent back. They take your ID, they take anything that identifies you, because you are no longer a person, you are now a product and you belong to them. all of a sudden appointments are being made for me in hotel rooms. Now, promiscuity is one thing, because at least you have a choice. But you never know who's waiting for you on the other side of those hotel rooms, those doors. You don't know who's waiting for you. In this one instance, there were 3 guys waiting for me, and they had already talked about what they were going to do to me. And I'm there, and it's all 3 men, and they're doing terrible things to me. I mean, heinous things, degrading things. And they're laughing. And I remember laying there in so much pain, and I remembered praying, God, please help me. Please help me. And then I thought, why in the world would God want to help you, you nasty thing? And so what you do is you try to dissociate, but there's nowhere to go. So you lay there and you wait for it to be over. And you hope that when it's over, you can get up. And if you can get up, you get up and you go to the bathroom and you clean yourself up. You act like it was no big deal. And then you get ready for the next thing. People think that human trafficking is all about sex. It's not. It's about money, power, control, manipulation. People pay to do to you what they can't do to their own wives, what they can't do to their children, what they can't do to their children's friends. I was the entertainment at a party. And they stripped me naked, stood me in the middle of a bed, and beat me with pool sticks. The wager was how many licks I could take before I went down. So they beat me. Finally, the stick was broken across my head. I thought it was over. He called for another stick. And he started to beat me with that stick. And I remember going down. I couldn't see, but I could hear. And I heard someone say, you have to kill her. You can't take her to the hospital because they're going to ask too many questions. I remember praying again, God, please don't let someone read to my children that they found their mother naked, dead, face down, and in a ditch. And I heard the guy say, I can't kill her. So they wrapped me up in a sheet like a mummy, put me in the back seat of a car, drove me to a hospital, and threw me on the back dock like a bag of garbage. I was out there for about 3 hours, I guess. A maintenance man found me, took me in. One person asked me one time what happened to me. Once. And when I didn't tell, nobody asked again. So what I learned later was that when somebody asks you a question like that, then they're required to do something. People don't want to do anything. So to justify not doing anything, they say things like, well, this is the life she chose. That's par for the course. And she could have just left. So I was in that hospital for 13 days. When I got ready to leave, guess who they released me to? To him. And I couldn't take it anymore. I knew that if he didn't kill me, someone in the streets was going to kill me. So I decided that my only way out was to kill him. Oh my goodness.